This is the Glock 17, weighing in at 23 ounces, storing 17 rounds of ammunition, and with its polymer thin black frame, it is one of the most lethal handguns to ever enter the market.
Even more durable is the love many Americans carry for this particular brand of gun.
In 1985, this gun would be launched in the United States, and from there it would be featured in countless movies, rap songs, and even become a household name in the United States. Moreover, this is a gun that would be used by 65% of the law enforcement in America. So how did a small company from Austria do this? How did a man go from making household products to making guns? And most importantly, how did the Glock, a small handgun with a plastic frame, managed to take over one of the largest gun capitals in the world?
Once the preserve of staff officers and pilots, the sidearm is now in far wider use.
£8 million order for the Glock 17.
Mr. Glock had absolutely no firearms experience whatsoever.
On ops, it's both a backup in case of problems with the SAAC rifle.
It helps to understand the rise of the Glock.
Okay, so to first understand this part of the story, we have to go to 1980s Austria to meet a man named Gaston Glock. This story is about a guy who was at the right place at the right time. You see, for 20 years, Gaston Glock had been manufacturing products made from polymer plastic, things like curtain rods and door and window hardware. But one of the most important things that he sold as well were knives. Gaston had struck a deal with the Austrian army to sell them knives and bayonet, and one day, while he was visiting the Ministry of Defense, he overheard a conversation. It turns out that the Austrian army was looking for a new sidearm for their officers, and the gun that Steyr had submitted fell below the specifications needed for the gun. Gaston immediately jumped on this opportunity and asked them what the requirements were for the gun. He had very little training with guns and had never manufactured firearms, but he saw an opportunity, and he would later find that this would be his one advantage. To him, a handgun was just another attachment for an officer, similar to a knife, and because he knew nothing, he was able to start from scratch. So these were the requirements. The army needed a high-capacity pistol that could hold more 9mm rounds than the 8 that the P38 held. It needed to weigh less than 28 ounces. It should have a consistent light trigger pull for fast and accurate firing. It should be streamlined and easy to holster. The recommendation was a frame of less than 1.2 inches. Very importantly, the gun must have no more than 40 parts, far fewer than the industry standard at the time. On top of all of this, the pistol should be able to withstand extended contact with the mud, snow, and ice, and be able to fire 10,000 rounds with no more than one failure per 1,000. Oh, and also be safe enough to reduce accidental mischarges. This is a lot. So for the next few months, Gaston got to work, and on April 30th, 1981, he filed his first patent on his 17th invention, the Glock 17.
You can bury a Glock pistol in the dirt, dig it up a year later, and it'll fire just like new.
Only a year later, the Austrian army decided to adopt this gun. Here's why. I'm just gonna put it bluntly. The Glock beat every single other gun in almost every way. You see, at the time, most gun frames used only metal, but the Glock uses a material called polymer plastic. This is important because it made the Glock extremely light. It made the Glock weigh in at 23 ounces compared to the H&K's 33 ounces. The Glock also only had 34 components compared to the SIG's 53, and the H&K had 77, which is more than twice as many. When they put the Glock to the test, out of 10,000 rounds, the Glock malfunctioned only one time. And when put to the test with mud, heat, ice, and snow, it passed all of them. He had made a super gun. Gaston Glock had steamrolled past all of his competition, but how? How did he manage to do this when all these gun manufacturers were bigger than him? They had more money than him. They had more expertise than him. How did he manage to come out on top? Well, I think it simply comes down to the fact that he just started from scratch. He had a blank sheet of paper in front of him. He listened to what the customer wanted, and he did a few basic things very, very well. He made it light, he made it easy to use, and he made it reliable. That's it. That's literally it. He had pretty much made it, and his Austrian business was doing very well, and I don't think even he knew how big things were about to get. Let's go back to the 1800s for a second, where the Revolver had just come out and America was going crazy for it. This gun was revolutionary. It could fire multiple bullets without reloading. It was easy to manufacture, and it immediately created a mass market. Because of this, the founder of the gun, Samuel Colt, had become a national figure. This gun was also pushed by the fact that many prominent figures used it, one of these being Captain Samuel Walker from the Texas Rangers. You ever heard of this guy? This guy was the stuff. This guy was a celebrity back in the day. Good old 1800s day. Haha. Okay. His adventures and stories of using this weapon even led the American police to adopt it. America had gone into a flurry buying this weapon, and it lasted all the way through the 1800s. Now let's fast forward back a little bit, back to 1984. The revolver just wasn't cutting it anymore. Criminals had weapons that could fire faster and way more rounds than the Revolver 6. And while the rest of the world moved on to pistols, America was lagging behind. I mean, even the Soviet Union had pistols. Like, come on! Come on! What are you doing here? Come on, American police, get it together. Sorry if I just spit on you. America was searching for a new weapon, and fortunately for them, there was a new one that was just about to come onto the market. Glock started selling in Atlanta, Georgia in 1985. And sales were relatively high. The problem was that not many people in America actually knew about the Glock, or even what it was. And even if they did know what it was, the plastic made the design look kinda weird and different. A lot of people at first glance actually thought the gun looked quite ugly. This view of the gun continued all the way until a guy named Jack Anderson. Jack Anderson was a newspaper columnist, and he thrived off of scandals, and wasn't really known for his factual accuracy, and his next target would be the Glock. This article came out in 1986, and it completely changed the trajectory of Glock sales. The article is titled "Gaddafi Buying American Plastic Pistols," and literally in the article says Glock 17 4 times. This article says, "Intelligence sources tell us Gaddafi has nearly completed a deal to buy more than 100 Glock 17s, possibly as many as 300. And probably the most important thing that this article says, the handgun in question is the Glock 17, a 9mm pistol invented and manufactured by Gaston Glock in the village of Deutsch Wagram, just outside Vienna. It is accurate, reliable, and made almost entirely of hardened plastic. Only the barrel, slide, and one spring are metal. If dismantled, it is frighteningly easy to smuggle past airport security. Can you see why this would be upsetting to the American public? This last part created a huge panic, not just for the American people, but for the United States government. This article blew up and sparked a huge media war between gun enthusiasts and gun control activists. And the name of the gun that this whole thing was centered around was the Glock 17. There were protests against this gun, there were laws passed that banned this gun in certain places. People were just terrified that Gaddafi terrorists in the Middle East were going to use this gun against them and be able to smuggle them in airports. The crazy thing about this article is that none of it was based on factually correct data. There was no evidence anywhere of Glocks being sold to terrorists in the Middle East. And on top of this, the airport dilemma was because a lack of attentiveness by the airport security. In fact, the Glock was later shown to be no more of a hijacking threat than any other firearm. And there was no proof that it was able to get through the metal detectors as well. But the article did its job. It got the attention of the media. And suddenly, everyone's attention was on the Glock.
And in that time, gun control advocates have seen their hopes for change run smack into that durable passion for everlasting weaponry.
This super gun that could sneak past airport security and was fully made of plastic and could hold 17 rounds and that terrorists were going to use. Before this article, no one really knew what a Glock was. But after this article, everyone wanted to see what the fuss was about. Everyone wanted to see this new crazy gun from Austria, and sales went through the roof.
They don't need to post videos like this one on their website because Glock is already America's favorite so-called super gun.
The strategy that Glock adopted was to start with the armed forces. They knew that if they could get the armed forces to adopt this product, then the public would soon follow. And this worked. The police were looking to upgrade from their revolvers, and since the Glock had 17 rounds of ammunition, easy to use, and had top-notch accuracy, the US police departments were sold. Police force after police force signed deals to get this gun, and pretty soon the public followed. The gun was displayed in movies.
Between your faith and my Glock 9mm, I take my Glock.
It was talked about in rap songs. And pretty soon it became a household name. America, just like in the 1800s when it had revolver fever, now had Glock fever. And it wasn't very long before everyone had heard of the Glock. 1986 was a big year for this gun, and it only kept growing from there. It was everywhere. It had accomplished its goal. It went from being the Austrian gun to the American gun. And this is a moment in history that really shows what the gun capital of the world was all about. The Glock had a huge impact on America, from reshaping law enforcement to self-defense to even pop culture and movies. I can't help to think but to where Gaston Glock started. An Austrian who was simply at the right place at the right time, and when he saw an opportunity, he pounced on it. He listened to the experts and he did a few things very, very well, and now his name is one that every household in America knows. This story is a testament to the philosophy that by doing a few simple things very, very well, you can leave a deep impact on the world, and maybe even leave a legacy like the one of Gaston Glock's. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you want to know more about this subject, I got a lot of the information off of this book. It's called Glock, The Rise of America's Gun by Paul M. Barrett. The link will be in the description. You'll be supporting the channel. If you want to help support my channel further and its mission to study history's greatest founders and entrepreneurs, I will be uploading a full video just on Gaston Glock on my Patreon, and you can find some scripts and some other extra stuff on there as well. As always, thank you for watching and for supporting my work. It means a lot to me. It really, really does. And I'll see you guys in the next one.